He didn't even look up from the shrimp cocktail when he told me I was disposable. Anyone who thinks they're indispensable, he said, swirling gin in a company-branded tumbler, shouldn't wait for the new year to be humbled. HR chuckled beside him. Tight red dress, clipboard like a blade. The words hadn't even finished echoing through the banquet hall before I understood. The layoffs were already chosen. This wasn't a warning, it was a eulogy. They were reading mine with a glass of Veuve in hand. I sat across from them, still wearing my promotion smile. My name was engraved on the holiday gift boxes this year. I'd signed the Tesla regional launch, revived a dying skincare brand with a TikTok campaign that got picked up by Good Morning America. I wasn't just indispensable, I was the reason the lights were still on. So why was HR looking at me like a scratch-off ticket that came up empty? I raised my glass slowly. To reinvention, I said, my voice like winter pavement, dry, cold, a little cracked. Nobody clinked. Back at my table, my assistant Morgan leaned in. You okay? I smiled, sharp, absolutely. Just realized I forgot to cancel my silence. The party blurred, stilted dancing. A DJ who kept saying, let's make some noise, like we weren't watching careers burn behind cocktail napkins. I slipped out before dessert. By the time I hit the parking garage, my hands were already moving. I still remembered how to move in the dark, years of pitching under pressure, surviving male mentors who called me kiddo while stealing my decks. First, I sent a single-line text to a number saved under Do Not Use Unless on Fire. You still want Meridian? Then I called Sasha. Not Sasha from legal. The Sasha. The fixer. One who once got a startup founder out of an SEC chokehold using nothing but a cappuccino and a leaked internal memo. Sasha, I said, I need to be untouchable by Monday. A pause. Tell me who to make bleed. HR and her puppet. I didn't go home. I drove to the W Hotel and paid for a room in cash. My thumb drive was in my purse. On it, 2 unreleased campaigns. One for Meridian Hotels, one for a Japanese pharmaceutical giant. The company told me to stall because we don't want to look too desperate overseas. Funny thing, desperation smells a lot like ambition when it's in the right suit. At 2:14 a.m., I got a response from the number. Breakfast. 7 a.m., wear blood. I shut my laptop, turned off the lights. Laid there in the dark, heart hammering like a loaded gun, already aiming. They thought they were planning my funeral. Forgot I bury fast, and I don't bring flowers. By 6:52 a.m., I was already seated in the Ritz dining room, black wool coat draped over the velvet booth like a body bag. Hair slicked back. No makeup but eyeliner sharp enough to open arteries. Across from me, Delia Langston, Chief Brand Officer of Meridian Hotels, and the kind of woman who makes grown CFOs sweat through Tom Ford, sat nursing a black coffee and the kind of stare that usually precedes lawsuits or mergers. She didn't say hello, just raised a brow. I slid the thumb drive across the table like it was evidence. No deck, I said, no preamble, just results. She took it, plugged it into her tablet without ceremony, and started watching. I didn't blink while she scrolled. I wanted her to see the Tokyo pitch, the rebrand, the data, the 3-month forecast. At minute 4, she smirked. Minute 6, she exhaled like a woman watching her ex get evicted. At minute 7, she said, and they passed on this. They said we weren't positioned globally. Delia took a slow sip of her coffee. How fast can you move? I reached into my purse, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and slid it across the table. LLC already filed, domain purchased. I've got creative leads in LA, London, and Singapore on standby. All of them ex-redacted. Fired, burned, bought out, and funding? Enough to get me to Q3. After that, Meridian's retainer will cover my coffin or my castle. She leaned back, stared at me like she was trying to decide if I was a gamble or a weapon. Then she nodded once. I want exclusivity. You ghost your old firm, no portfolio poaching. No media, done. And if you screw this up, I'll make you disappear. I smiled. You'll have to catch me first. By 7:34 a.m., I was back in my car, driving through freezing fog. Adrenaline felt like bees in my blood. I didn't go home. I didn't shower. I went straight to the office, because I had unfinished business. The same HR woman, let's call her Lacey, was already there. Her heels clicked like gunshots on marble. She passed my desk, didn't even look at me. Probably assumed I'd be out begging for references. She was carrying a Starbucks and a file folder labeled Final Reviews Q4. She made it 4 steps past me before I said, "You forgot something." She turned, plastic smile ready. Oh, I held up a small white envelope, not sealed, just closed enough to feel ominous. "What is that?" she asked, eyes narrowing. I stood, walked it over, pressed it to her chest. "It's what being indispensable looks like when you're on the wrong side of the contract." And then I walked straight into the boardroom. No invitation, no agenda. The CEO, Gary, still nursing a hangover from his Santa costume, looked up, confused. "Do you need something?" he asked. I dropped my keycard on the table. "No, you do," he blinked. I dropped the second envelope beside it, stamped, addressed, legal watermark gleaming. Delia Langston's signature on the bottom, their biggest client, gone. By the time I reached the elevator, the room was dead silent behind me. It was only 8:03 a.m. The day hadn't even started yet, but for them, it was already over. The panic didn't set in until 9:17 a.m. That's when I got the first call from Greg in procurement, voice cracking like a teenager caught with a bottle of Fireball in his locker. "Hey, just checking. Did you actually walk into the boardroom and resign?" With Meridian, I sipped my coffee. "Greg, you ever see a horse gallop into a burning stable?" "What?" "Exactly." I hung up. By 9:34, my LinkedIn inbox looked like a funeral guest book. Half the department was sending cryptic messages. "We need to talk. Can we meet? I always admired your leadership." That last one came from Jenna, the same Jenna who once told a junior analyst I only got promoted because I wore heels to budget meetings. At 10:01, Gary emailed. Subject line, urgent. Please call me immediately. No body text. I ignored it. Instead, I walked 3 blocks to a building that used to house a luxury yoga studio. Lease had expired, windows dusty. But I knew the landlord. His daughter interned for me 2 summers ago, and I once helped her fix a pitch deck for a scholarship to Parsons. By 10:45, I had keys. Short-term lease, I told him. 3 months. Maybe longer. Starting a new business? No, I said. Starting a reckoning. Gary was probably dry heaving into a marble trash. Ken and HR was rewriting the org chart in Sharpie. I stood in that empty space and made calls. Real ones. Not groveling, not grasping. Calls with teeth. Carmen in Seattle, UX design prodigy with 4 fingers of middle finger energy. In. Malik in Dubai, media buyer with an instinct for viral like it's pheromonal. On board. Even Nora once left the company in tears after being publicly called too emotional by Lacey during a product review. "Are we allowed to swear in client meetings?" she asked. "Only if you're wearing lipstick." I'm in. By 1:03 p.m., Lacey cracked. I know this because Morgan texted me a photo from the office kitchen. Lacey standing over a half-eaten scone, whisper yelling into her phone, eyes wild, hair slipping out of its bun like the unraveling of her empire. Caption, "She just said she blindsided us." I replied, "Tell her it's not blind if you weren't watching." Then I told Morgan to quit. 5 minutes later, she sent me a screenshot, her resignation email with the subject line following the storm. Attached was a gif of Beyoncé walking away from an explosion. God, I trained her well. At 2:46 p.m., I received an email forwarded by Sasha. Subject, urgent. Client retention strategy sender. CFO thread, frantic. Words like damage control, PR fallout, legal containment. My favorite part? Gary had scheduled an emergency town hall. For 4:30 p.m., I smiled. They thought the storm had passed. I hadn't even started pouring the rain yet. 4:27 p.m. I parked across the street from my old office, engine running, windows up, heater purring like it didn't know we were preparing for war. From where I sat, I could see the 10th floor conference room glowing like a fishbowl. Packed. Blazers and blouses, eyes down, jaws tight. People who had watched me bleed for this company now clinging to lifeboats built out of buzzwords. Town hall in 3 minutes. Cue the funeral music. My phone buzzed. Sasha, go. I stepped out of the car, not in heels, in boots. Steel toe, black leather, the kind you wear when you expect resistance. Crossed the street slow, like a storm cloud. Security tried to stall me in the lobby. I handed him an envelope. Inside, letter from legal, time-stamped, confirming my resignation had been voluntary, with no non-compete clause enforceable under Ohio state law. Also inside, a list of every client I'd personally managed in the last 6 quarters, and a little sticky note that said, "You might want to forward this to legal." He didn't stop me. By 4:32 p.m., it was standing outside the boardroom, watching through the glass like a ghost. Gary was at the podium, tugging at his collar, explaining organizational recalibration and forward-thinking synergy in the kind of tone you use when the iceberg's already punched a hole in your bow. Lacey stood near the door, arms crossed, looking like she hadn't slept since 1997. I knocked, not loud, just enough to fracture the moment. Heads turned. Then silence. Gary blinked. Miss Harper, you're no longer with the company. You can't. I opened the door. You don't get to say my name anymore. He stuttered. This is a closed meeting. No, it's a funeral, and I brought flowers. I stepped in. Dropped a printed email chain on the table. Dated last month, forwarded from a sympathetic mole in legal. Subject line, can we let Harper go after Q4? She's too loud in pitch meetings. Attached was a reply from Lacey. Let her finish the Ford rollout. We cut, gasps, one audible Jesus. Jenna covered her mouth like the scandal might be contagious. Gary tried to speak. I raised a finger. I didn't come to argue. I came to say thank you. Lacey laughed, short, brittle. For what? For reminding me I was never part of this club. For making sure I had nothing left to lose. I looked around the room. Eyes darted, breaths held. You just lost your biggest client, your brightest talent, half your creative department by sunrise. I turned to leave, but paused. Oh, and Lacey? She didn't answer. I smiled. You might want to check TikTok. I left them in silence. By the time I hit the elevator, the video was already at 24,000 views. A screen recording of the leaked email thread, layered over a photo of me in that red dress from the holiday party, captioned, "When they try to bury you, but forget you're a damn seed." I got back to my car and didn't even bother starting it. Just sat there. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 3 new client inquiries. 7 job offers. 1 message from Delia. Monday, we take the rest. The storm wasn't over. It was just starting to flood. Monday, 6:11 a.m. Delia pulled up in a midnight blue Escalade with plates that read V1 pitch, and the engine purring like it had diplomatic immunity. She didn't get out, just rolled the window down and slid aviators onto her face like this was a classified extraction. Get in, she said. It's time to pick at their carcass. The drive to the new office, if you could call a half-renovated yoga studio an office, was fast and silent. She didn't ask if I had slept. We both knew I hadn't. I'd spent the night drafting contract language so airtight it could survive re-entry. Our first official day, and I already had 3 NDAs signed, 4 creative proposals out, and 2 recruiters on hold with resume filters set to wounded and brilliant. She parked out front, cut the engine. Your move, she said. Inside, the place smelled like drywall and destiny. Folding tables, a whiteboard with yesterday's caffeine fingerprints, and on the floor in the center of it all, a stack of printed resumes. Names I remembered, some I didn't. All of them exiles. We called the meeting the gathering. Not an orientation. War Council, they came, one by one. By noon, 15 of them, all casualties of the Lacey Gary regime. Why now, someone asked. I looked around. Concrete floors, peeling paint, dreams still duct taped together. Because they forgot who we were, I said, so now we remind them. And then, almost like clockwork, ding. Malik, our media whisperer, stood. We've got movement. He pulled the feed onto the projector. Gary, in front of a mic. A press junket, probably meant to ease shareholder anxiety. A soft PR cleanse. We're excited about new directions. Our team remains strong. Miss Harper's departure was voluntary, Delia muttered. Mutually beneficial, Gary continued. Then came the question that turned the air in the room solid. What about the leaked emails accusing your team of targeting a female executive for removal post-major client acquisition? Gary froze, visibly. We don't comment on internal. Reporter cut him off. Would you like to comment on the hashtag currently trending number 3 in the country? #Harper effect. The room around me erupted. Morgan, now officially on board, grinned like someone just gave her a tank. They're calling you the pitch witch, in a good way. I blinked. That doesn't sound like a good way. No, she said, typing furiously. It's delicious. By 3 p.m., I was booked on Morning Brew, Fast Company's podcast, some upstart YouTube show hosted by a guy who looked like a retired magician, but had 2.7 million subscribers. At 5 p.m., Sasha sent a file. Subject, unraveled contents, confidential memos, panic forwarded between Gary, Lacey, and legal, all timestamped within hours of Friday's implosion. One line stood out. If she has meridian, we're bleeding. And bleed they did. By 6:30, I got a text from a blocked number. You made your point. Let's talk. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, I'm not done making it yet, and pressed send with the same finger they used to point me to the exit. Tuesday, 7:42 a.m. Lacey showed up outside my new office building like a door-to-door regret salesman. No appointment, no shame. Just a camel trench coat, oversized sunglasses, and desperation bleeding through her foundation. Morgan spotted her from the upstairs window. Guess which ghost decided to haunt us? Let her in, I said. I like my apologies in person. Lacey stepped inside and instantly recoiled at the exposed beams and scent of ambition. The walls weren't finished, but the energy, palpable. Screens alive with edits, voices pitching, espresso machine hissing like it was caffeinated with revenge. She tried to smirk. So this is your operation? I leaned against the front desk. Welcome to the aftermath. She didn't sit, just hovered like a bad Yelp review. I came to offer a mutual benefit. I motioned for her to continue, mostly to enjoy watching her squirm. Gary's unraveling, she said quickly. Board's talking restructuring. He's looking for a deal, a way out. Quietly. We were wondering if you'd consider easing off the gas. I asked. You mean the people who drafted my exit before I'd even finished saving Q4? Lacey didn't blink. You got what you wanted. Humiliated us. Taken our biggest client. What's left to prove? I leaned in. That fear is a better motivator than loyalty. That no one gets to erase a woman and walk away with a bonus. She flinched. Look, there's chatter about an offer from whom the board, a buyout. They're thinking, bring you back in, as a consultant, rebrand it as reconciliation. I stared at her, then walked over to the whiteboard. Scribbled a single word in bold black ink. No. Why? She asked, arms crossed tight enough to bruise. Because when a house is built on rot, you don't remodel. You burn it down and salt the ground. Lacey stood there, lips trembling behind gloss, eyes darting like she was scanning for an escape hatch. Then she tried the last card in her dusty little deck. They're planning to blame it all on me. Gary's already drafted a statement. Of course he did, I said. You taught him well. Silence. I was trying to survive, she whispered. I stepped closer. So am I. The difference is, I don't eat the women next to me to do it. She left. No handshake, no deal. Just the soft squeak of defeat on polished concrete. By 11 o'clock a.m., Gary's press release hit the wires. In light of recent misunderstandings, Miss Harper has been invited to serve as an external advisor during our transition. Morgan walked over holding her phone. You want to tweet something? I took it. Typed. Funny. They said I was replaceable. Now they're trying to license the replacement. Hash pitch which hash Harper effect retweets came in like confetti. Comments ranged from Queen Energy to her silence has a kill switch. And then Delia called. 2 more clients want a walk from your old firm, she said. They want in. But they want a show of strength. I already knew what to do. Get me a venue, a camera crew, and a stage. Title, she asked. I smiled. The Resurrection Tour. Because if they wanted a show, give them a damn crucifixion. Friday, 6 o'clock p.m. sharp. They held it in a converted warehouse in Columbus, exposed steel, black curtains, enough lighting rigs to make it feel like either a tech keynote or a public execution. My name wasn't on the promo. Just a hashtag, #HarperEffect. No press list. No live stream. Just 50 chairs, 25 of which were filled with the most powerful CMOs in the Midwest. The other 25, ex-clients of my old firm. People who had already pulled their budgets. People who had paused, waiting to see if I'd swing or fall. I walked out to no music, just footsteps, and silence that snapped like a rubber band. Behind me, a projection screen showing only one image, Gary's quote from last quarter in 72-point font. One person doesn't make a company, especially not in heels. First words out of my mouth, let's test that theory. The next 20 minutes, I laid out our platform. A lean branding collective with global reach, built not on hierarchy but velocity. Contracts structured around performance, not politics. We called it Signal North. I didn't smile once. At the end, I said, we don't offer deliverables. We deliver outcomes. If you want polished decks and bloated agencies, you know where to find them. If you want fire, welcome to the blaze. Applause, not polite, not performative. Hungry. Delia stepped out after me, took a handful of private meetings in the green room. And by 8:30 p.m., we had 5 signed letters of intent, including a legacy CPG account that had once told me I was too aggressive for Midwest sensibilities. Midwest just got louder. I was halfway through a celebratory gin, and tonic when Morgan barged into the dressing room, eyes lit like someone had confessed to arson in a live interview. Need to see this? She held up her phone, a leaked audio clip from Gary's office. It's not about performance, it's optics. You give a woman that kind of power, they start thinking they own the room. My heart didn't pound, it slowed. The reporter's voice followed, so the emails weren't just strategic. Gary, she was never supposed to stay. She was bait, to draw in clients, then pass them off to someone who could manage the relationships properly. Silence. Lacey's voice, you mean a man. Exactly. The clip ended. By 9:00 p.m., it had gone viral. By 10:15, Gary was trending #1 in the country. #bait and fired. And by 11:00 p.m., Sasha called. They want a response. Statement, interview, TV, your pick. I looked out the window. Across the street, the old agency building stood tall. Hollow now. Cold. Lit from the top floor only, Gary's office. Send them my schedule, I said, then light the fuse. Because tomorrow wouldn't be about defense. It would be about demolition. Saturday, 8:00 a.m. The street outside the old agency was already cordoned off. Reporters, protesters, ex-employees holding lattes like torches, one of them waving a cardboard sign that read, replaceable this. Inside, Gary was barricaded in his glass corner office, blinds half-drawn like a hostage, negotiating with karma. Legal was reportedly on hold with 4 different firms. HR, radio silent. Lacey's LinkedIn had quietly updated to career break. I didn't knock, didn't announce myself. I walked straight through the lobby like I still owned the floor plans. Security didn't stop me. One of them nodded, the other offered me a mint. I took it. Elevator up. 30 seconds of silence thick enough to chew. When the doors opened, Gary was already waiting. His tie was crooked, shirt wrinkled. The kind of man who had once made 6 women cry in 1 fiscal quarter now looked like he'd aged 10 years in 48 hours. You've made your point, he said, without greeting. Not quite. I walked into his office, stood at the window, looked out over the city he used to command. He closed the door. What do you want? I turned, dropped a document on his desk. A notarized purchase offer. For the firm, not the brand, the building, the client list. Legacy? Gary stared. You want to buy me out? No, I said. I want to erase you. He scoffed. It's not that simple. You don't have funding? I smiled. Delia does, so does Meridian. So does half your former board who now believe in outcomes over optics. He slumped into his chair. You won't get approval. I leaned over the desk. You're assuming this is still a negotiation. He reached for the offer. There are still terms to discuss. I placed a small black object beside the paper, a flash drive. Everything you said, every internal memo, every timestamp manipulation, already secured, already duplicated. 1 copy goes to the press, another to every client still on the fence. And the third, I leaned in. That one plays on a loop at next year's Women in Branding Gala. He didn't touch the paper. He just said, quietly, you're going to ruin me. I straightened my coat. You did that yourself. I'm just writing the epilogue. When I walked out, the cameras were waiting. Someone asked, is it true you're taking over the company that pushed you out? I paused, smiled. No, I'm replacing it. That night, Signal North's new website went live. The homepage header, a single line in bold, you were never too much, they were just not enough. And under it, a banner that read, now hiring. Especially the underestimated. Within 72 hours, our inbox had over 1,000 applications. By week's end, Gary had stepped down for personal reasons. Lacey's apology went viral for the wrong reasons. And me? I launched the Meridian Global campaign from a rooftop in Tokyo, sipping sake while Morgan read me the coverage aloud. Not out of vanity, out of proof. Because the same room that once told me I was too loud now echoed with my name. And I never had to raise my voice. Only the standard.